In our last section, we're talking about income and assets. We're actually going to talk about inflation. And this is essentially a reference to the increase in the cost of goods and services over time. So what would be just a very, very basic generic example? Let's say, you had the value of a loaf of bread. Let's say the value of a loaf of bread was 50 cents 10 years ago, and today you were to say, okay, the value of a loaf of bread is $1. Well, what happened? It got more expensive. And this is the part that a lot of people really miss. The real thing that I want us to focus on is what happens to your money today versus your money tomorrow. Well, in this example, if we had $1, it would buy us 2 loaves of bread. Okay? However, under this current example, if we have $1 in the present, well, then this $1 is going to buy us one loaf of bread. So, what actually happened? Well, the amount of things we could buy with our $1 actually decreased. And by the way, guys, the amount of things that you can buy with your dollar, this is called your purchasing power. This is called your purchasing power. All right? And so let's go ahead and tackle what happens to inflation. How does it rise over time? Okay, so what we want to do is we want to look at from certain years, and we're going to look at from 1990 to 2018. Typically, guys, whenever you're looking at the full data for the economy or the population, it's always going to lag a little bit behind because people have to take time to analyze it. But from 1990 to 2018, we grew by what's called an average inflation rate of 2.32%. Okay? And one thing, I believe in 1990, the inflation rate for that single year was 5.6%. And for that single year in 2018, it was 1.81%. Okay? So every single year is going to have a different inflation rate, but what you want to do, like we talked about earlier, was we add all those inflation rates and we divide by the number of years from 1990 to 2018. And we get this average. And by the way, this is a great place to use an average. We get this average inflation rate. So let's kind of talk about the price in reference to $1. Let's say you were to buy something for $1. Okay, so here's $1 in 1990. And then essentially what we're going to use is we'll use our function here. And you can say that from 1990 to 2018 would be about 28 years. Okay, and we're going to start out with $1. And remember, if our interest rate is 2.32, well, we got to do 100 plus 2.32, which is 102.32, which becomes our growth rate of 1.0232. And we're going to raise this up to the power of 28. So what $1 would essentially buy, or $1 in 1990, we're now going to say that this same dollar is going to go to oh goodness, guys, where's the clear button? Oh, there we go. We're going to say, okay, we got 1 parentheses 1.0232 close parentheses, and we're simply going to raise this up to the price of, or to the number of years, 28. So what would cost $1 in 1990 will now cost you $1.90 in 2018. So what's that to say? That would say that things have gotten almost twice as expensive from 1990 till now. Now the place where I really want y'all to focus on is in your savings rate. So let me give y'all a very cool formula that I made myself. Okay, so notice what I've actually created here is a formula for you to understand how the value of your savings account will diminish over time. So here you'll notice that we have the A on the top and the bottom, and this is our amount saved. Okay, and here we have 1 plus our savings interest, and here we have x. Alright, there we have x, and this is going to be our time in years. Okay? And so let's go ahead and tackle this. Now, one thing that's actually going to happen is these amounts will actually cross out. So I apologize. I actually meant to write just this. Okay? But let's go ahead and say, what would happen if you had, let's go ahead and talk through an example here. Say you had, $1,000. Say you had $1,000 saved for 5 years at, let's say there's a 0.05, I'm sorry. Let's say there's a 0.5% interest rate, and let's say that inflation is going to be our yearly average, which is 2.32%. And so the question is, how much is your $1,000 worth at the end of this time? Okay, and so let's go ahead and tackle this. Okay, so we're going to take this little formula, and let's say, all right, we have 1 plus, and here our savings interest rate is that 0.005, so I just went ahead and converted my percentage to a decimal, and we're going to raise this up to the power of 5 years. And on the bottom we have 1 plus our inflation rate, which is 0.0232. Remember, all I did was take these decimals and move them 2 places to the left, and we'll raise that up to the power of 5 years. Now, how are we going to put this into our Desmos Scientific Calculator? Well, we click our A to the B, and so on top I'll put parentheses, 1 plus 0.005, close parentheses, raised up to the 5th power, and then on the bottom, so that's our savings, we have 1 plus 0.0232, close parentheses, and we're going to raise this up to the 5th power, and let's see what we get. Oh, I'm sorry guys, y'all see where I put a comma there accidentally? Put a decimal there, that would be correct. And we're going to get this value, we're going to get 0.914. Alright, that's 0.0, sorry guys, having a rough day here, 0.0914. Now, what does this really mean? Well, we said that we are going to go ahead and take our $1,000 and we are going to multiply it by this number. We're going to multiply it by this 0.0914. Oh, guys. Yeah, I am so sorry. The decimal. Wow. So sorry, guys. The decimal's right here, so 0.914, 0.914. And let's see what happens. What do we get? Well, if I do 1,000 times this number, 1,000 times 0.914, well, we get $914. So what are we really saying here? We're saying that under this scenario right here, if you had invested $1,000 5 years ago, yeah, on paper it would look like you have more, but the real value of your $1,000 is now $914. Or another way to say it, what you could have bought with $1,000 5 years ago, you can now only buy $914 today. So the question I asked you at the end of our last video was, is savings a great place to invest a lot of money over the long term? And the answer is no. And so let's go back to why you should have a savings account and how large should that savings account be. Okay, why should you have a savings account? You should have it for emergencies, okay? Whether that's a doctor bills, whether that's a car crash, you need to have some form of savings so that you don't take out stupid loans or stupid debt like a credit card. All right? And then another question is how much? Well, you only want to have about 3 to 6 months of your monthly expenses You only want to have 3 to 6 months of your monthly expenses saved up. Why? Because this amount will be losing some value over time. So you want to have enough for the short term, but you don't want to have so much that you're constantly losing money over the long course of time. All right? Guys, I hope this helps. And this lesson is going to lead us into, if we don't want to have a large savings over a long period of time, this is going to lead us to investments in our next lesson. All right? I'll see y'all then.